Salutations, listeners.
Baller
Magulis.
Nanu. Thank you for tuning in. This is Three Men and a Basement, and we are the Ultra Crepidarians.
Yep.
My name is Colin McLeod.
My name is Mark Holt.
My name is Action Jackson.
And you've arrived at our movie review podcast. Welcome.
Greetings.
It's good to be here.
It's good to be queen. I don't know.
Probably.
It's good to be queen?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, I thought you were going Mel Brooks on us. It's good to be the king.
No, this is a different.
Yeah, this is a whole different vibe.
Let's just call it, it's good to be royalty.
Yeah.
It's good to be not destitute.
Yeah, unless you're French.
Unless you're French. Yes, good point.
But we don't talk about the French.
We don't talk about Star Wars.
We don't talk about the French.
We don't talk about obscure films, and we don't talk about the French.
Also, if there's two things I hate in this world, it's people that are intolerant of other people's cultures and the Dutch.
Yes. Yeah.
Smell like cabbage. Small hands.
I haven't sniffed a Dutchman.
Oh, you should get on that.
Yeah.
But they've got great ovens.
Dude, Sniffin' Dutchman, that's a band name.
Yeah.
Sniffin' Dutchman.
Sniffin' Dutchman.
We're really just kicking it off right here. The people who've never listened to our podcast before have no idea what the fuck's going on.
Not a clue.
But that's fine. That's fine. It's the journey that matters, right? It's the friends you make along the way.
That way.
Yeah, it's the friends you make along the way.
Just keep them guessing.
I mean, I'd like them to change it. I think that they should binge every episode.
Well, obviously. That goes without saying. Anyway, Sniffin' Dutchman.
Yep.
My pen's not working. So, Sniffin' Dutchman. Yes, back to the intro. In this movie review podcast, we like to review movies that are kind of middle of the road, let's say. Nothing that's super duper well known. We're not doing a Star Wars.
No. What about an Indiana Jones?
No.
Okay.
So, we are also not doing super duper obscure movies. So, the movie that Mark made in high school, when they promised him that he'd be big in Hollywood, and they got him on film doing things that he probably shouldn't have been doing.
Probably too high caliber of a movie. Is that what you were saying?
It's not where I was going with it, but
Indiana
if that's how we're going to sell it
Star
to you,
Wars.
yes, that's why we're not doing that film.
Yeah. Oh, you guys.
Debbie does Dallas, Mark does Ypsilanti.
Well, he did. All of them. That's the big tower.
Yeah, so nothing too well known, nothing too obscure, except for the brick dick, apparently.
It ain't full of water.
Those of you in Southeast Michigan, you're gonna get all of these references, and those of you who are in England or one of those other weird American states like Canada or France, you're not going to get all of these references, but that's fine. That's fine.
I'm sorry, did you just imply that England was a weird American state?
That's exactly what I did.
Okay, just checking.
Because to me, England was nothing more than a weird fucking American state, like North Dakota.
Yeah.
Or Canada.
Yeah.
I like to think of England as the amniotic sac from which we broke out of.
I feel like it would be everybody's amniotic sac if that were the case.
Yeah, they'd like to think so.
Amniotic Sackathon. I can't call another band name this soon.
No, but it's gross.
Jackson things are coming out of him. Okay, so back on fucking track, man. We're having a good time. I like this. Yes. So in this movie review podcast, we review movies and deliver to you our opinion about whether or not it's worth your time tracking them down and listening to them. In this, the 57th.
Yeah.
Seventh?
Yeah, how many tints?
Or sevenerd.
I like 57th? Savant?
Sure.
Sevenati?
In the 57 episode of this podcast, we reviewed the movie.
Was it? What is it?
Chapped Lips.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it. I gave you a disjointed layup, and what is?
Come on. You know where I'm going with this, right?
No, you don't.
Yeah, Chaplin, which is about, obviously, a religious official who's, guiding minds into the world of religiosity.
Right. Right. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Nah, it's a movie about Charlie.
Psych. Charlie.
And not the one with the chocolate factory.
Okay, Chaplin. Movie about Charlie Chaplin. Cherries on this one?
Big cherry.
Little cherry.
I had seen this movie once before, and it actually was not as long ago. Like, this movie came out, jumping ahead a little bit, this movie came out in 1992. I did not see this movie until maybe like 5 years ago.
Okay.
Something like that. Actually, it was kind of a comedic, Charlie Chaplin-esque affair for me to get my hands on this movie, because I already had Chaplin's collected works in my collection, and I kept trying to order Chaplin on, like, eBay and shit, and then I would just get a collection of Chaplin movies, which I already owned. And it happened, like, 3 fucking times.
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
I was like...
Better really chapped your ass. You're welcome.
Yeah. But yes, I eventually got my hands on it, and I watched it one time, and, yeah, here we are. 1992 film, rated PG-13. I am going to go ahead and say no to the PG-13.
Yeah, definitely.
Nope.
Probably should have been R.
This absolutely, most definitely, categorically is R.
Yep.
For like a billion reasons.
Yep.
Like, I'm not, like, I love R movies. I love everything that makes a movie R. I'm not, like, a fucking prude, but, like, dude, like, full frontal, like, constant references to, like, you know, booze and drugs, like...
Underage sex.
Yeah,
Yep.
Severe themes, language, like, there's nothing in this movie that would make it not R.
Yeah.
Violence.
Even a wee bit of comic violence.
But to his point, there's nothing in this movie that would not make it R. R includes more than what was in this movie.
We're demonstrating the counterfactual right now.
That's fair. That's fair. I do have some thoughts on, or maybe it's a conspiracy theory, perhaps, on why it got the rating that it did, but I'll save that.
Okay.
Chaplin runtime, 2 hours and 23 minutes.
Definitely felt long.
Yep.
I think it felt long, but I don't think it felt like 2.5 fucking hours, man. Like, that's long. I forgot it was that long. I would say 2 hours. It was what it felt like.
It felt longer to me, and this undoubtedly is an artistic choice, but I think it was largely in part due to the fact that, like, the silences were very protracted, but it was a film about a silent film actor, so it kind of plays to the point. But again, it was an artistic choice. I don't think it was the wrong choice. I don't think 2.5 hours was too long. I think it felt... I'm not making my point very well. I think they could have made it 2 hours and 10 minutes, or even 2 hours if they cut a little bit back in certain spaces.
So it, like, dropped trow, and you're like, wow, that's long. But then, like, once, you know, the movie got inside you, you're kind of like... Oh, it wasn't as long as I thought.
It wasn't as long as I was expecting.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you could cut a little off the tip.
Yeah.
Sure. But it still fits pretty well.
Yeah. It would be more palatable if there was just a little bit less length.
It was a girthy film.
The girth
though.
was fine.
Yeah, it was a girthy film.
The girth was great.
At some point, you just end up getting bed sores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Uncle Joe. Or is it Grandpa Joe?
Oh, you mean the fucking, like, lazy layabout
from
who
the chocolate
was
factory.
perfectly capable of working,
The different Charlie.
and then laid in bed only until he got a free fucking ticket to a chocolate factory, in which case he was fucking clicking his heels.
Yeah.
That Grandpa Joe.
That Grandpa Joe.
What a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. While Charlie's family was fucking destitute.
Yeah. The other Charlie.
The other Charlie. Actually, this Charlie was pretty destitute as well.
Also true.
This movie felt really long to me.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Honestly, of the 2.5 hour, 3, like, I feel like there's a category movie, the 2.5 to 3 hour movie. 3. I mean, after 2.5 hours, you know, it might as well be 3. You know.
Go full Ben-Hur.
Yeah. Of the movies that I've seen that are rather long, like this one is, I don't know. I think it really dragged down for me.
Fair enough.
400.
I say went along at a clip, but still a long-ass movie. Mark says felt longer than 2.5, or...
Yeah, I think it felt longer than 2.5.
Okay. And Jackson said
I feel
Goldilocks
like
felt
felt
right.
I feel like it was 2.5, and 2.5 was a little too long, but palatable nonetheless.
Yeah, you still get it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's some fodder here for
This.
you know?
Okay. What genres we got for this movie?
You're gonna love this.
Hell yeah.
Docudrama.
Fuck, IMDb, and they're AI generated.
It's better than some.
Listen,
Period drama.
Okay. No.
Redundant.
Showbiz drama.
No.
There we
fucking-
go.
It's not even fucking shit. Like,
There it is.
It's showbiz with a Z.
Drama.
Yes. Drama.
Biography.
Yes.
Comedy.
Yes. All three of those things. Those are the
none
correct.
of the others.
The last
Those are the correct categories.
No, this is definitely a showbiz.
Drama, comedy, biography. The only other thing I might add is, like, it was kind of about just Chaplin.
And-
so I would say, like, I mean, he was like a one-man army.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one-man army would have to be included.
And there were definitely scenes in which he filmed in the desert. One might even call this a desert adventure.
It's obviously a desert adventure.
Yeah.
He also crossed the Atlantic Ocean to get from England to the United States, so it's a water adventure as well.
That's
Water
Did you see
adventure.
those eyebrows though?
Yeah.
This is highbrow comedy for sure.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
You're welcome.
I'm smelling what you're stepping in.
Well, not yet.
Also, I mean, you know, most of his films were in black and white, so it's kind of a dark comedy as well.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. Especially if you turn it off,
Oof.
then you don't see much.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, like, you know,
Very
he was hoisted in the air and all this stuff. I mean, he's the pretty high concept, if you
Yeah.
ask me.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay.
All right,
No.
our pot shots at IMDb's shit genres are done.
They never get old. They
Comedy,
never get old.
comedy, drama, biography.
Yeah. That's,
Anything else?
That's it. No,
Nope.
no,
I agree.
That's perfect. So you were looking for somebody.
I'm always looking for somebody, Mark.
Was
Can you be that somebody?
I mean, I can't be that somebody, but I know somebody that could be that somebody.
Wait,
Do you know a guy?
I know two guys. One of them is the guy you're thinking of.
Oh, so
Right.
So I know a guy who knows a guy.
Yeah, I'm a little interested in who the other guy is that we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to meet the other guy.
Most people do. Nobody does.
Nobody gets to meet that guy.
Yeah, he's my guy. I
Oh,
keep him.
ooh.
I keep him to myself.
Like
There's
chained up in the basement?
There's a Motown song in there.
Yeah. My guy. Talking about my guy.
My guy. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so here we go.
That's the magic happening. For those of you in cyberspace.
Okay. An elderly Charlie Chaplin discusses his autobiography with his editor, recounting his amazing journey from his poverty-stricken childhood to a worldwide success after the ingenious invention of the little tramp.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, come on, guys. What else the fuck did you expect it to be? It's a film about Charlie Chaplin.
Yep.
Come on. It's about Charlie Chaplin. The end.
I thought there'd be more Nazis, but,
Yeah.
I felt like there was an
There were a
adequate amount of
handful.
Nazis.
Yeah, it was a sufficient amount of Nazis.
One.
There was a aisle full of Nazis.
Yuck.
Yeah.
The thing about Nazis is that they suck.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I wasn't sure where you were going to go with that.
Yeah. If you needed to know what the thing was,
Yeah.
the thing about Nazis,
They suck.
we don't like them. They is bad. We discussed
They
that
is
in
bad.
Imperium. They is bad.
We just lost our whole Nazi fan base.
Oh, no!
that's so bad.
What are we gonna do?
God.
Oh, no!
We'll get over it.
Fuck off.
So, so we like that description. It was a good description.
Yeah, no notes. Okay, who is not in this movie?
Very few people.
Very few people are not in this movie.
I think Shia LaBeouf was one of the people not in this movie.
I honestly would not stake my reputation that he didn't sneak in somewhere.
I don't think Harrison Ford was in this movie.
Again, would not stake my reputation.
That's fair.
Somebody's in there somewhere. All right, so starring in this movie, we've got Robert Downey Jr.,
Iron Man.
probably best known for Iron Man, but also heartthrob member of the Brat Pack from the 1980s. We're going to rapid fire, I think, through most of these because we have so many to get through. But Charlie Chaplin is played by Robert Downey Jr., and I believe, I'm going to try and pepper in a handful of trivia things that I know about this movie. I believe this was his last role, or at least major role, before he went to rehab, and I don't know how many times he's been to rehab, but like the rehab that worked.
Yeah.
Right? And then he sort of like took a hiatus from acting, and came back with fucking Iron Man, and he's just been kind of killing it ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this movie was sort of his last hurrah before his reinvention. And I think it's something that's really stood the test of time.
A big one here that kind of surprised me is Geraldine Chaplin played Hannah Chaplin, his mother. Geraldine Chaplin is actually Charlie Chaplin's daughter.
Yeah, that's a really cool bit that they fit in there. And she did a great job of like, is she an actress or?
She is.
I honestly don't know how you wouldn't be, like, with Charlie Chaplin as your father. Like,
Yeah, she's done a lot.
you'd have to take a crack at it, right? Like,
She's done mostly like artistic films and independence and, like something that somebody took a shot at. But it's very clear that she is in it for the art and not the money, which being the daughter of legendary Charlie Chaplin, how do you do anything else?
Well, I mean, she was in Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah.
obviously. I mean, that's where I know her from.
Right.
Okay, let's rapid fire. We've got Moira Kelly. So I know Moira Kelly as the female lead in The Cutting Edge
One Tree Hill.
and One Tree Hill.
that Tony? Tony Hopkins?
Tony Hopkins.
Tony Hopkins.
I think you kind of have to, you have to put that flavor on it. Tony Hopkins.
Tony Hopkins.
Yeah, Tony Hopkins. We know him.
He ate a couple of people.
The hip hop.
Anthony Hopkins has been in fucking everything. Hannibal Lecter, let's just say. And then we can move on because he's been in everything else too.
Yep.
Dan Aykroyd.
Yep. Amazing.
Ghostbusters.
Marissa Tomei.
So hot.
Dude, My Cousin Vinny. Marissa Tomei and My
Oh,
Cousin Vinny.
she's so good.
Amazing.
Spider-Man's aunt.
Can't make tracks like that without posi traction.
Right.
Dude, Kevin Kline was in this.
Yeah.
Huge.
Okay, obviously Kevin Kline's best role ever is in Wild Wild West.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
100%.
If you said anything else, I'd be disappointed.
I would say second, but not close second, would be Road to El Dorado.
Oh my god. Dude, Kevin Kline's good in everything he does.
He's so good.
One of my favorites with Kevin Kline is French Kiss with Meg Ryan. Fucking so good.
Mila Jovovich.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Multipass. So good. Dude, that fucking movie slays.
Big Ba Da Boom.
Big Bada Boom.
Who else? Who else we got in this rapid fire?
Kevin Dunn, who you might know from Transformers. He plays Sam Witwicky's father.
He was also in one of our movies, Chain Reaction.
Oh, fuck yeah. He was the FBI guy.
Yep.
James Woods.
James Woods. Diane Lane.
There are a handful of people who actually get more attractive with age. Diane Lane is one of them.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I look back on her movies in the 80s and I was like, wow, you were pretty. But, dude, like, Unfaithful, did you ever see that movie?
Yep.
I literally cannot make it to the end of that movie. I get too steamed up and I turn it off.
Yeah,
and
Diane
I say,
Lane
I gotta
was-
go do something in a different room, in private, and I will be back.
Yeah, she was
eat some biscuits.
cute in the 70s. She was pretty in the 80s. She was hot in the 90s. She was smoking in the early 2000s, and now she's just illegal.
Oh, dude, she is so crazy hot. It's not even fair.
And one that barely made the cutting room floor, David Duchovny.
Oh, God.
So good.
Dude, Evolution.
Yeah. Such a good movie.
David Duchovny was a fucking nobody when this movie was made.
Yeah.
Maybe he was, and I'm just too young and stupid to know that. But, like, X-Files wasn't a thing yet. Like, he
Yeah.
was fucking...
He looked good in a hat.
He was so young and handsome. I mean, he's still handsome, but he's not young anymore.
Nope.
Nancy Travis, who was the female lead in So I Married an Axe Murderer with Mike Myers. Great movie.
3 Men and a Little Lady.
Oh, yeah, she plays Mary.
Yep.
Who else we got? Don't want to miss any of these.
One that might need to be mentioned is John Thaw, but he's sort of a small timer.
Yeah, he was kind of, frozen in his career, like, early on, and then he sort of slowly warmed up and kind of thawed out a little bit.
Yeah.
God, I'm bringing those dad jokes fucking hard today.
It's okay.
I'm really proud of myself.
It's okay.
Proud of myself.
I'm proud of you, too. I'm proud of you, too.
That's all I needed to hear.
Okay.
Is that all we got, other than the, like, bunch of other people that you're definitely going to fucking recognize?
I believe so,
right.
yeah.
That you're going to be like, how did you not mention Brr Brr Brr? Trust
got
us.
Limited time.
Brr 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 was on our mind.
Promise.
We know Brr Brr Brr. Okay, would you recommend this movie?
Yeah.
I mean, caveats.
Not really.
All right. How about you?
Yeah.
Any caveats?
Not really.
All right.
How about you?
Yeah.
Any caveats?
Well, it depends on who I'm recommending it to.
God damn it!
God damn it! There's always a butt. You're a butt.
I believe... Oh, man, this is going to be good. I believe that this was a well-constructed, witty movie, full of talent. I would not recommend it to myself.
What?
Yeah.
Dude, for shiz?
But I am not trying to shit on the quality of the movie.
Oh, wow, that surprises me.
Yeah, that actually shocked me a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I mean, it's... Don't get me wrong, guys. It's no Stardust.
Fuck you.
But...
Oh, you a bad man.
We vows to fight.
Good. But no, I'm not going to shit on this movie because I think it is a well-made movie. I think that it has a purpose, it has a place, it told a good story. I was not enthralled.
Interesting. Yeah, that fucking surprises the shit out of me.
Wow.
Hey, listen, hey, everybody's entitled to be wrong. So,
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, if Stardust taught us anything...
Yeah, it taught us that sometimes out of our periphery comes this...
amazing feature.
No, a different
well-written,
perspective.
that's
Accurate
creative,
movie.
and, handsome people, and...
a ground-shaking, epiphany.
That Stardust is a magnificent film. I agree.
I don't know. I haven't seen it. Oh, wait, I did. I guess I forgot.
Oh! How dare you? How dare
I'm
you?
sorry. You set me up, and I'm still bitter.
Grisey Lafferty is coming for him. That's the only thing that's like sort of buying me peace of mind. Is I know she's actively hunting. Okay, so 2 wrecks around.
Yeah.
I would say.
2.5.
2.5.
Yeah, 2.5. 2.5. Because
I'm a raging semi.
I'm not actually, well, not yet, but I'm not actually shitting on this movie. I'm just saying
a firm
that
maybe. Stiff maybe. A stiff maybe.
It's a flaccid perhaps.
I don't know, but my gut says maybe.
All right, so 2.5 wrecks. Yeah, we'll call it 2.
Yeah.
Are we ready to... Blah, 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 blah. If you're new here, those really fucking annoying sounds you just heard are our way of letting you know that you are now in spoiler territory.
We did that with our mouths.
It's not annoying.
With our mouth holes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I flapped my meat in my mouth hole.
Yeah, I did it with Colin's mouth hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meat
I
flaps.
did not like that as much.
No?
But I'm happy to have tried it.
Okay.
So it's like broccoli.
It's like broccoli. That's exactly what it's like, Mark. That's exactly it.
It's a medium shaft and then like a big old bush.
Yes. Very big bush and a kind of woody shaft.
Broccoli. You know? I mean,
It's what's for dinner.
Yeah.
It's broccoli. Put it in your mouth. I think the thing that was most upsetting is that it was green like broccoli.
That throws most people.
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah. That's why you called it the Gumby.
Yeah.
Okay. It's kind of coming together in my mind now.
Yep.
It's
Oh, coming together.
yeah, it's because of the butt stuff.
Okay, so we are now in spoiler territory. Plenty of dick and fart jokes.
Yeah.
Which is honestly very unlike us. That's
True.
It's kind of a departure
This is true.
from the nature of the podcast. So, turn the podcast off or to a different episode if you want that sort of highbrow content. High concept podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, check out Meet the Feebles.
I was thinking the same thing.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I believe that is just a notch below Tokyo Gore Police.
Yeah, quite.
Crocodiles.
Okay, so how does this movie start?
Starts with Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, it's like he's talking about his mom, and he kind of like alludes to her being a good mom sometimes, occasionally.
Yeah, when she was, what did he call it? What did he say? When she was
good, she was really good.
Yeah, but no,
He kept like cutting it down to
it was either like, it wasn't she was good when she was good, it was like she was good when she wasn't, he didn't say in a fit, but like, you got the impression that his mother suffered from issues beyond sort of like standard fare. And his mother was a stage performer, and she is performing to a turn of the century
vaudeville audience.
Yeah. So real savory types.
Yeah.
And they boo her off the stage by throwing shit at her.
Like seat cushions and shit.
Yes. Which is, that's the standard way to do it, right? Standard operating procedure for getting somebody off the stage is to throw shit at them.
Yeah, to abuse them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I would do.
Because they're not people.
No.
And little Charlie Chaplin, he's what, 5? 4?
Probably.
4 maybe?
Yeah.
Little tiny guy. Whoever they got to play the kid is fucking adorable. Like, just...
They did a good job of like casting too, because he kind of looked like a younger version of
RDJ.
Robert. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So this little kid, he knows all of the words to the song that his mom was singing, and like he's sort of being young and cute and innocent, sort of buys the affections of the crowd, and they give him the shot that they just absolutely did not give his mom. And he sings and dances and he makes some money, and it's set up as sort of the birth of his career on stage.
Yeah, and he mentions that his mom never acted again after that.
Yeah.
And this movie, because it's trying to cover his whole life, it's based on his autobiography. There are some fairly substantial leaps in time, sometimes a couple years, sometimes as much as a decade. And it cuts forward. He's young. I think the first jump was like maybe like a year or two, and they're like pretty destitute. And then his mother gets arrested. He and his brother get sent to the workhouse.
Yeah.
Because that's really what we need. We need more of that.
Yeah, child labor.
Yeah, child labor. And just if you make them suffer enough,
They'll be subservient.
good things will happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how we do it?
Out of the ashes will rise an industrious young chap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For all of those that die in the workhouse or turn to the drink or commit suicide, for all of those thousands, you get a Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
And that's worth it because human beings are expendable.
A diamond in the rough.
That's right.
It's
Lots of rough.
It's like the old adage, little hands, little wages,
Exactly.
Yep.
That's the way to do
We're
it.
putting it together, guys.
Yep.
So Charlie Chaplin gets out of the workhouse. His mother gets some sort of like odds and ends work, mending and stuff like that. He and his brother come back to her. They're barely scraping by.
I don't think the brother comes back at that time.
You're probably right.
I think
Yeah.
he's alone with her when he has to make the decision to have her committed.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So it's very clear to him that like his mother's condition is well outside of his ability to help her, and she is not improving. So he commits her to an asylum. Meanwhile, his older brother Sid, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, Sydney.
Sydney, calls him Sid, has a gig as a performer, as like a singer-dancer in a vaudeville crew, and he tries to get Charlie a job. So, he sort of puts him through the proper channels. He sets up a LinkedIn account for him.
Yeah.
He makes him blast out like 1,500 resumes, none of which he hears back on.
Right.
He makes him write a whole bunch of cover letters, do mock interviews, all this stuff, and then ultimately gets him a job the correct way, which is he knows somebody and he just introduces him and says, please hire my brother.
Yeah.
Which is the way you get a job.
That's how I got all of my jobs.
Yes.
One thing I did kind of enjoy is of the interviews that he did, and I think you could argue that there were 2 of them, he just rolls into it, like he doesn't sit down and have a conversation with the person who is trying to hire him or considering hiring him. He just starts acting silly. So in the scene that you guys were referencing, he just kind of stands off in a distance. His brother introduces him to this guy, again, at a distance, and he just starts like reading this sign in like this super comedic way, and he starts acting. He starts stumbling around. He starts doing his slapstick routine. And he does the same thing later in the movie when he meets Dan Aykroyd's character.
Yeah. And so he gets the gig in vaudeville. He starts basically like killing it. People love his routine. He does a character that's basically the prototype of the Tramp. He's basically a drunk, completely silent character who stumbles around and does hilarious shtick comedy with his body. He's really fucking funny.
Oh my God.
I was amazed at how much of the movie made me laugh from just like him doing Chaplin-y things. Yeah. So he basically just stumbles around doing like fucking Chaplin-y things, and it's hilarious.
Oh yeah.
And I was amazed at how much it made me laugh. He gains a pretty okay amount of success as a stage performer in London before he goes on tour in the United States, and it's sort of a big unknown in the United States because he doesn't know how people are going to receive his brand of comedy.
Yeah, is he already in the United States when he gets the invitation?
Yes.
He's in Butte, Montana.
That's right.
Performing in the butt of Montana.
The butt.
And listen, we've all performed in some butts.
Yeah.
I get it.
Mark gets it, because most of the performing that Jackson and I have done was in Mark's butt.
It's true. It's true. I remember it.
He did that like
that 1,000-yard
stare. 1,000-yard nom stare. It's funny because
it's trauma.
He doesn't seem to have enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's the bit.
That's the bit. That's the bit.
You put your behind in your past.
He doesn't
Hakuna Matata.
Get it.
Oh.
Yeah, you
just
like
ruined a childhood film for me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so he's in the butt of Montana, far from the butt of Mark, and he gets an invitation to go to Hollywood.
Woo! $150 a week,
which is fucking like
a lot of money.
Bank back then, man.
I know people who are still making $150 a week.
Yeah.
Doesn't help as much now.
Nope.
Okay, so he makes it down there, hits it out of the park.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking slays it.
Kills it.
He has a knack for like stealing a scene in almost like in a literal way. The director is like trying to move the cast in one direction, and Chaplin just does something crazy, something silly, and the director just says, cut, no, keep rolling, and then just kind of like flows with it, and Charlie just kind of steals everything.
Which I fucking like love this part of the movie because it's okay, I love Chaplin's films. I love, like, Buster Keaton.
Oh, yeah.
But I will say most of the movies from this era, like, I just fucking hate. Like, they creep me out. They've got a bad vibe. Like, I really hate watching them, with the notable exception of Chaplin, Keaton, and, like, some of the bigger films. That being said, I loved this part of the movie because I feel like you don't get this a lot in movies, but like it was a very like detailed depiction of Hollywood at the time, which was like the fucking Wild West.
Oh, absolutely.
Of filmmaking. Like filmmaking was brand new, and everything that they were doing was either the first time they were doing it or it was invented last week.
Right.
And it was like everything was just so fresh, and they were just trying shit out, and it had this like fun, exciting, fresh, anything can happen type atmosphere that happens when there's a big revolution and stuff, right? Like, you know, the same thing happened with computers in like the late 90s, early 2000s, right? The Silicon Valley booms and all this stuff. Like, it's just everybody's got a fucking idea and they're just trying out their ideas.
Yep.
And some of the things are going to work and some are not. And it's just going to be a fucking balls to the wall crazy time while we figure it all out, you know?
Yeah, I love that large cylinder that just had like the background on it that was just kind of spinning. You know, like they didn't spend any time on it. It wasn't part of the movie, but like in this scene, they're just kind of panning over like all these like weird contraptions that they'd thrown together for making movies, and it was really very Wild Westy, like you said.
Yeah. It was such a cool series of scenes. Dan Aykroyd's character plays a guy who's sort of the king of directing comedies at the time.
Mac Sennett.
So of the 3 film directors in the world, he was the comedy guy.
Yep.
Apparently. I say that in jest, but like really, like there
basically, yeah.
This is all new, so there's not very many people who do this shit.
They called them flicker films because of the way that like the frame rate would flicker as you rolled through it. I mean, like Colin said, it was new last week. So the fact that there was more than one person doing it at the same time was kind of insane.
Which I feel like I've got to pepper in my quote. Dan Aykroyd's character was talking about the quality standards that he holds himself to. And in order to demonstrate this to Charlie Chaplin, he says, "Just so you know, quality is what I care most about. I never make more than 2 motion pictures a week."
Never.
Which strikes me a little bit like Queen Elizabeth I used to apparently brag that she took a bath once a month, whether she needed it or not.
Yeah.
Quote unquote. So it kind of had that vibe, right? Like, I never make more than 2 motion pictures a week because quality is what I stand by.
Now they can take years.
Now they always take years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was a very cool scene. I would love to see a movie that is just about that slice of time.
Yeah.
I think that would be interesting.
Yeah.
You know. So what's next? Do we jump forward a little bit?
Well, from here, I don't know if we could take it from like a chronological perspective, but like sort of a top-down structural perspective, maybe.
Right.
So one of the through lines that they explore pretty heavily in the film is Chaplin's love life.
Yeah.
Which I think the film does it really well. They do it very unapologetically from the standpoint, not unapologetically, they do it very, they look at it very unapologetically in the sense that, like, they're not trying to make excuses or make it seem like, okay, it was scandalous. Charlie Chaplin had a predilection for, you know,
young women.
And they don't gloss over it, which I appreciate, right? They don't try and make it, like, palatable by today's standards. They're like, yeah, this was absolutely, like, a thing, a piece of his life.
Well, like his first love back in London, her name was Hetty. She was 16. And then throughout the rest of the movie, they are rarely older than that.
Yeah, and there's a couple of them that actually, like, will make a quip or two about it. You know, we'll get into the FBI aspect of this, but, like, you know, they're trying to get him on that angle and all this stuff. But that aside, the age thing aside, they also explore the nature of his relationships from the standpoint of he was married several times, and obviously that means he was divorced many times. Some of his relationships meant a lot more to him than others. Some because he had children by those people. Some because he still really loved those women and still had great relationships with them. And some because it ended very poorly and he didn't.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to see sort of like all of these different, I don't even want to call them love interests, but, you know, all of these different like women that came in and out of his life and were sort of like defining to his life.
You know, now that I think about it, I feel like the women in his life is the largest through line for this entire movie. It starts off with him talking about his mother, and every time it jumps, it brings in a new woman, and it shows where he meets her and how he courts her, and then how it goes awry, and then it jumps forward. Maybe on a rewatch I could like test this out a little bit more, but I almost think like that is the through line for this entire movie, more so than his career.
Which is kind of funny because the whole movie keeps jumping back to RDJ playing an old Charlie Chaplin talking to Anthony Hopkins, who's playing his biographer, who they they say at the end of the film, was not a real person, but served a function in the movie as sort of like a sounding board to Chaplin, so he just wasn't like waxing philosophic about his life to nobody. But it's interesting because Hopkins' character as the biographer presses him several times about like, one of your wives has like a single sentence in your book. He's like, it's 500 pages and a woman who was legally your wife has a sentence. And it's funny because like his relationships do punctuate the film, but the source material that they're referencing sounds like it's considerably less punctuated by that.
Right.
And I wonder if that's like, you know, Chaplin's view of his life versus like somebody else's view of his life. Like, I mean, it's very easy to measure your life in relationships, especially legal ones, right? Like, if you got married 5 times, you know, I don't know if it's 4 maybe.
Right.
You know, having those be the benchmarks is like a pretty decent choice.
And that's another thing, is one of the women in this story had a very short and turbulent presence in his life. And the only way she was described in his story was, what was it, Northern Dome's expansive region.
Yeah.
And it was just a very not so elegantly poetic description of her breasts. And that was her only mention.
Bodacious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Bill and Ted were writing his biography, it would just be like a single word sentence. Bodacious.
Yeah, it was pleasant upper dome, expansive region. That was it. That was all she was described as.
That sounds like a fucking like NORAD installation.
Honestly. It sounded like he was reading off the site of some secret government facility. Like, oh, you're going to that shadowy place over there? It's in the Great Northern Dome in the expansive region.
51 minutes, 12 seconds north.
The more I like sit and think on this, I think this movie is about Charlie Chaplin's love interests.
And one of those love interests was cinema.
Yeah, but like all
and
of his
one of them
dysfunction-
was Lady Liberty.
No, like they spent a good amount of time talking about and showing his mother's dysfunction and how that impacted him.
Yeah, at one point, Anthony Hopkins' character even mentions it. He's checking off these names on his little checklist, and they're all the women that Charlie Chaplin was with. And Chaplin calls him out. He's like, hey, ask the question you're not asking me. And his biographer is basically like, well, okay, the question I'm going to ask you is, how did your mother's madness affect you, really? Because she had it, and her mother had it, and your grandfather had it, so how did it affect you? Mm-hmm. And it's very clearly a parallel that his mother's descent into madness shaped his view of women in such a way that he could never be fully satisfied. Mm-hmm. He could never be complete.
I don't know if I necessarily buy the conclusion there. I agree, but I don't know if I necessarily buy that he could never be satisfied or complete. I think it just factored into, like, he was really not great at choosing a partner.
No.
He was very weak when it came to women in terms of, like, you know, some people are just, they rush into things headlong, right? And it's like, I see a pretty girl, and it's like, marry me, please. And it's like, okay, whoa, slow up. But when you're, like, super rich and famous and all that fun stuff, it can be very easy to, like, find yourself married 3 or 4 times because
he
of that.
leads
You know?
with his belt and follows with his pockets.
Yeah, and he ended up marrying his mom at the end. Not literally, but like the woman that finally like cinched it for him that he stayed with was his caretaker.
Yeah.
You know, many of the scenes that she was in, at least towards the end of it, you know, she's pushing him around in the wheelchair. She's caring for him. She's
making sure
cleaning
he
him.
eats.
Yeah. And then he refers to that relationship as true love and bliss.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, he was with her like, what, 25 years?
23, I think.
So, you know, I think he found it.
Yeah,
But
at the end.
His first relationship was with Mila Jovovich's character. Sorry, not his
True
first
relationship.
Not his first relationship, his first marriage.
Wife, yeah.
First
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah.
And he married her under false pretenses because she claimed that she was pregnant.
She false flagged him.
It was a false flag operation. And then when he found out that she sort of conned him, he got really upset. I think he realized by the time, again, as it's depicted in the film, he realized by the time he was recounting this that, like, this wasn't her fucking idea. Like, somebody proposed this to her, and she was too sort of, like, stupid and doe-eyed to, like, say no.
I believe
so
it was said that it couldn't have been her idea because she wasn't smart enough to spell the word idea.
Mm-hmm.
Which I've met those people.
Yeah. Just a whole lot going on outside and not a whole lot going on upstairs.
Yeah. Like, there's a light on, but nobody's home.
Yeah, because they forgot to turn it off when they left.
That's I'm going to check out. You feel free to keep talking. So that was his first wife. His second wife, he was married to very briefly.
Is that Levy?
No, that was the third wife. His second wife he was married to very briefly, but she did bear him 2 sons.
Ah, yes.
And that ended very poorly. So I think she was the one that got a single sentence. His third wife was Levy.
Played by Diane Lane. Yep.
Didn't he refer to her as a short bitch or something like that?
No, not her.
No, that was
not
Mary
her.
Pickford.
That was the second wife.
That was the second one. Okay.
The third wife he actually was in love with. He did get along very well with. It was always amicable through the divorce and everything. Basically, the reason that they got divorced was he was still too married to his work. He was too busy.
Yeah.
And she couldn't be with nobody. That's not fair to her. So she left, but it was very amicable. And he said, she took me for considerably less than the rest of them.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. And that
was probably his most successful marriage at that point.
Yeah, and they remained friends, and they depicted them on very good terms later in the film. And then in the liner notes in the end, they mentioned that she actually lived out her golden years in Switzerland, down the road from Charlie Chaplin and his wife.
Yeah.
With her husband, and they still got together, socially and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. And then I think his fourth wife was the one that he ended up staying with. Is that correct?
Una.
Yeah, because she was 18 when they met, and he was probably pushing 60, and she was his caretaker.
Yeah.
She found him funny. She watched his movies. She laughed with him. She was smart enough to recognize his genius and not so smart that he felt intimidated.
And she bore him 8 children.
8.
Which is...
a lot.
Power.
Elasticity.
Unagi power.
Elasticity.
Yes. It's the spirit is willing, but the flesh is spongy and bruised. So, like Mark said, there are 2 other relationships that we haven't really explored. The very first one, which, I guess we did talk about a little bit. Hetty. They had their first date the day before he was set to go to America, and he
proposed to her?
Comically proposed to her, which is another one of
Over tea in the street.
Another one of my quotes. He proposes to her, and she goes, Charlie, I can't marry you. And he sits there and he kind of taps his lip and he just goes, I can't think of a reason why not. And she goes, well, I'm only 16. And he goes, yeah, you'll get older.
Priceless.
Classic. So he never stopped having a thing for her. It's sort of a through line in this whole movie that he always pined for her.
And he based a lot of his heroines and female actors off of her.
Yes.
She was his muse.
Yes.
And you can very clearly see the parallels between Hetty and the rest of his conquests, because they were all young, they were all pretty, and it was very clear that he was always searching for the next Hetty.
Well, I'm young and pretty. I think they were based on me. Fuck you.
That's fair.
Yeah. The actress that they got to play Hetty and the actress they had play Una look strikingly similar.
Very.
To the point where I sat there and I was questioning whether or not they got the same actress to play her.
Yeah, totally. There was one more relationship that really wasn't a relationship. It was sort of casual sex with a woman that he had cast in some of his films, and she was very unstable. She got pregnant and claimed that it was his. He knew that was not the case for 2 reasons. One, her behavior, at least in the film, really demonstrated that, this was well within something that she would
This was absolutely a trick that she would pull.
Yeah, she's outside on his lawn, screaming at him at 2 a.m, banging her shoes against. This is preceding the pregnancy claim.
Screaming at the top of her lungs while being drowned by the sprinklers on the lawn,
very unstable.
Yeah.
And he knew because of the timeline, this absolutely cannot be my kid. But that didn't stop her from publicly claiming it, and she took him to court, and he ended up having to pay child support, even though the blood test said that this was not his kid. At the time that the trial occurred, blood tests for paternity were not admissible in California court. So he had to pay child support to the tune of, I think, $75 a week. Mm-hmm. In perpetuity because he lost that court case.
Which he got off so easy there.
Yeah.
He had vast wealth.
I mean, yeah, for him, yes, that was nothing. For me, $75 a week, I'm that'd break me.
For something you didn't do?
You didn't even have the fun.
I think he had the fun, he just didn't, I think someone else also had the fun.
Lots of fun was happening.
Yeah.
It's like one of those fun zones, you know, with the bouncy castles.
Here's the funny thing. So, 75 a week for Charlie Chaplin at the height of his career was a pittance. But 75 a week in 1960?
50s, 60s?
Oh, no.
40s. It was early. I think it was 50s.
Was it 50s that was Joan?
It was around time of, like, McCarthyism.
It would have been probably about 1950.
Okay. So 75 a week in 1950 was a pretty big fucking amount of money.
Yeah.
75 a week today is still a big fucking amount of money, but not nearly as substantial.
I would take an extra 75 a week.
Honestly.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
You know,
Dollars?
anything. You know?
Dicks?
I'll take 75 dicks, and then I'll turn around, I'll sell them, make an extra $50.
You know what, Mark? That's industrious, and I appreciate it.
Yeah,
you know,
problem.
you're playing the game.
I got a guy.
You got a dick guy?
I got a dick guy. I got a dick guy. You bring me a dick,
You'll flip it for him.
Yeah. Flip.
That's gotten you in
this
so
dick.
much trouble that you put those ads out. I flip dicks. Just flipping dicks.
That's what they call me. They
I'm
go
just picturing
The dick flipper.
I'm picturing the grand reveal at the end of every episode of Flip This Dick. Move that bus!
Move that dick. The Dick Flipper. The Dick Flipper is perhaps not a band, but most assuredly that is a one-man act that at least goes through the crowd.
That's a one-man army right
Yes,
there.
the Dick Flipper.
Could be a two-man act.
Ooh.
You know what? You're probably right. They probably have an assistant.
Or is that more of a flop?
Dick Flopper?
At what point does a flip become a flop?
When it's unsuccessful.
You don't want a flop.
The Flaccid Flopper.
Flaccid Flopper.
Is the Dick Flipper's assistant.
Yes.
Raging flip.
And the Phallus Fluffer is the one that sets the Dick Flipper up. And then...
It's like the sorting hat,
Yeah!
you know, of flips and flops. You know?
Is that what they mean when they say put a hat on it?
Oh
Exactly.
my god.
A raging flip or a flaccid flop. You know? And the hat will talk to you about it.
And he's doing this in the festival grounds, and people are not happy about
Not
this.
enjoying it
'Cause it's
at all.
The local police have been alerted.
Yeah, but what about the movie? Where are we at in the movie? Okay, so we talked about the ladies.
Yes, we talked about his relationships. Another big through line in this movie is Charlie Chaplin, due to his circumstances, grew up what would be considered by modern day to be very liberal and a proponent of socialist policy. That led to a great deal of scrutiny by J. Edgar Hoover specifically at the FBI and also McCarthy during the HUAC investigations. So Charlie Chaplin was under the microscope for being a communist and, you know, in the pink scares of the late 40s through like the early 60s. Charlie Chaplin was definitely the target of scrutiny and discrimination because of his political beliefs, which he said time and again. He's like, he was not a communist, but he was about as far from a fascist as you could get.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you've ever seen The Dictator, it is, like, one of the most anti-fascist movies
Absolutely.
I could, like, possibly conjure for you. But that's another pretty strong through line in the movie is his contentious nature with the law and sort of, like, powerful figures in American government.
And it was such an elegant way of portraying that he was almost untouchable because he hadn't done anything that they could prove. He hadn't said anything that could get him locked up, and he hadn't gone anywhere or been seen with anyone that could be used as evidence against him. But all of the signs were pointing directly at Chaplin for being a member of the Communist Party. And McCarthy was gunning for him. He was like, I'm just waiting for him to slip up. I'm just waiting for him to make the wrong move, to say the wrong thing, to be seen with the wrong person, and then I've got him. But he wasn't a member of the Communist Party, and therefore was never apprehended and removed for
having an idea.
Yeah.
But he was also it did end up culminating in, he went to London, and on his way back, he was literally like outside of Ellis Island. And again, I don't know if this is accurate for how it happened to him in real life, but in the movie, they're literally outside of Ellis Island, and he and his family get turned away and have to basically go into exile because he was ostensibly thrown out of the United States.
I thought it was as they were leaving.
I think they were coming back.
Okay.
Yeah. Which, I mean, would suck, but when you have, like, Charlie Chaplin's resources...
Could be worse.
Could be worse.
Yeah. See, I was under the impression that they had basically waited for him to leave on the boat and enter international waters, and then were like, hey, don't come back.
I think they waited for him to leave and then did it.
Okay.
But they didn't get word about it until they were, like, coming back.
I see.
And then they were like, psych, go back.
Right.
Yeah.
Which,
regardless, they took advantage of him being on the water, and that was that.
Yep.
we don't take advantage of people on the water.
No, we do that on the land.
Exactly. It sounds like you're going to hurt these women. I'm not going to hurt these women. What are you not understanding? That was a It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia
because of the
reference.
implication?
Because of the implication. They're not going to say no because of the implication.
But that sounds like...
It sounds like you're going to hurt these women. I'm not going to hurt these women. What are you not getting about this?
God!
I feel like you're not getting this. I'm not getting it at all. Yeah, and then I feel like I'm going to come up with other ones as we discuss, but two more through lines. The first one, kind of short, I think they talk about his, I guess, creative genius, right? His method and how much his work consumed him.
Oh, yeah.
That was something that they touched on time and again at virtually all points in the movie. He liked to perform. He liked to make people happy. And he also liked to make people think. And he was in sort of, you hear the stories about like Stanley Kubrick and his perfectionism. I get the sense that Charlie Chaplin was very similar, at least from this film, that he just wanted it to be right.
Yeah.
And he would work incessantly until it was right.
And he mentioned that with his biographer in one of the last scenes of the movie. You know, he was talking about the best he could do was get it close.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't have regrets because he didn't get it right, but he got it close.
He had no regrets.
No regrets. Nor regrets.
The other thing that was kind of a through line in this movie, it ties into his political leanings and, his upbringing, was they really tried to show Chaplin's discomfort and difficulty in wrestling with his worldview, coupled with the wealth and notoriety that he's gained, right? I don't think he was comfortable with or accepted the idea that people should be as wealthy as he became. He felt like that was the problem, and his worldview stemming from his upbringing, being in the poorhouse and being destitute, sort of like cemented that in him. And so once he gained this fame and notoriety, he became extremely self-critical and very uncomfortable sort of in his own skin, living his own life. And he didn't feel like he was equipped, at least as they depict in the film, he didn't feel like he was equipped to help the situation in any way other than what his toolkit was, which was, I'll make another film. And so he did try in his way to be critical of fascism in The Dictator, to be critical of unfair and biased and bigoted immigration policies in The Immigrant, to take a potshot at the non-existence of welfare programs and support for orphan children in The Kid. These films were designed to help illuminate social problems, but they sort of, I think, characterize him as feeling like his contributions in that realm were insufficient, and he was constantly at war with his current state in life and success and his prevailing worldview.
Yeah, at one point, I think at like the midway, he references, I forget who he's talking to. I think he's talking to Kline's character about how he hasn't done anything with his voice. That's not how he phrases it, but I think you're right. It does come up in several scenes where he sits back and just opines on his ability and then lack of follow through.
Yeah.
In making change. That he recognizes his position and wishes that he had done more with it.
Yeah. So with all these through lines, it sort of culminates in Chaplin finishing talking to his biographer, and then the Academy reaches back out to him and invites him to basically receive a special, I don't know if this is what it was, but basically Lifetime Achievement Award, let's call it.
Yeah.
It's 10 years after.
It's 63 or something like that.
Something like that. And then he goes and receives that, and the film sort of ends on a montage of some of the best scenes in all of his films. And then during the credit sequence, there is text walls explaining what happened to sort of all of the major players in his life. His wives, himself, his kids, his friends, his siblings, his mother.
I liked that they called out Hopkins' character as being completely fictitious.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times with these true story movies, they bring up the characters that were real, that were based on real figures, but they rarely call out this person or this character did not exist.
We just fucking made him up.
Yeah.
But they would never say, you're right. It's so weird that they say that in a good way.
Refreshing.
It almost lends credibility to the
Yeah.
rest of what happened in the film.
Yep. Could have just as easily not included that at all.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Right. And then I would say roll credits.
Yep.
Roll credits. What did we like about this movie?
I really enjoyed that they blended Chaplin-esque slapstick humor into scenes that were not... Like, the bit where they're trying to hide from the law and they're trying to finish up their movie in the apartment. God. You know, I mean, there's so many, like, little instances where... Okay, so this movie is, like, there are a lot of, like, scenes from Chaplin's work, or there are scenes that depict him shooting scenes in Chaplin's work. What I'm referring to are, I guess, the category of scene that is like the real life, more or less, like what's really happening.
A scene in the actual movie.
Yeah, and then they blend in some like silly slapstick elements to it that like it pulls you out of the moment, but it like immerses you in the feel and the vibe of the movie. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Totally.
They speed up the motion like something out of Benny Hill, and you know,
or something out of, let's say, a Chaplin film.
Well, yeah, but like.
Sorry, buddy.
Oh no, you're good. But it was just like, yeah, they just Chaplinize these scenes of the film.
Good.
It was so great.
It was such an unusual choice. It was a risk.
Yeah.
To do something like that, and it was a risk that, in my opinion, really paid off.
Because it very easily could have been overdone to the point where it would have taken all credibility away from this film.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is like a drama.
Like suddenly,
like, why are we fucking and like we're running around and doing fucking things with the silly ass cops that are trying to chase you and bonk you on the head and like, like what the fuck? Like, it could have absolutely ended up like that, and somehow they managed to pull it off where it felt organic, and it also felt like fucking hilarious.
It felt like an homage.
It was really funny.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I thought they had some really, and I'm sure that you will elaborate more over there, Mr. J-Man, but I thought they had some really, like, clever camera tricks that they did, scene transitions. Colin, you brought up a really good one in the very beginning where it shifts from black and white to color while he's taking his makeup off.
Oh, yeah. So for context, for those of you listening, I did not notice this the first time I watched the film, but like I ended up rewinding it. They didn't know why I was rewinding it, but I was like, it opens on him sort of walking in full tramp getup, right? And the tramp, even though it's shot in black and white, he still wore like, you know, sort of vaudevillian clown makeup, right? Like all white face and then sort of like darken the eyes and that kind of thing. So basically his face in color looks black and white still. And so he walks in and he sits down in this very sort of pensive scene where he's staring just off of the frame. He ends up sort of applying that, you know, I forget
cold
what it's
cream.
Is that what it's called? Cold cream? I always forget what it's called. I remember my mom used to use it to take her makeup off.
Yep.
But like, you know, sort of slathering that on his face and wiping off the makeup. And I didn't realize that like that entire scene up to that point is shot in black and white. And the first time that you end up getting color is when the makeup gets wiped off. And it's such a creative way to say, like, okay, we're transitioning away from the tramp, away from Chaplin's characters, and into Chaplin's real life that is going to be depicted in color. And it was such an amazingly creative device that I unfortunately missed the first time I watched this, but upon a rewatch, I was like, fucking brilliant. Subtle, but also impactful and meaningful.
Well, I would argue that you're not supposed to notice it. You're supposed to feel it.
Yeah.
So
probably right.
I think it probably hit you the way that it was. Because I didn't notice it when I watched it, but when you rewinded it, then I, like, appreciated it more. I think it's meant to be something that, like, you don't notice, but you feel.
Yeah.
And it did a very good job of that.
There were several scenes where they would show the film that they were making. Like, they would show the shooting of the scenes, and then they would show the pre-edited cut. You know, and then they would pan out and you would see him behind the projector watching what they had just filmed and making the cuts in real time. And it was just really cool how they transitioned in and out of those. There was one in particular where they were playing actual clips of Chaplin and found footage of the era and then shot a train, and the train looked like found footage, and then the grain of the film faded, it slowly entered color and then entered widescreen.
Yeah, that's a good scene.
That was a really good shot.
Yeah so there was a lot of that.
Very creative with the cinematography.
Yeah.
I started this episode talking about how I didn't necessarily enjoy the movie.
Yeah, fucks up with that.
Yeah.
Get him, Jackson.
I cannot.
Got him. Good.
That was me getting.
I know. I was worried you weren't going to get him, but you got him. I heard it.
I cannot even pretend to ignore that this movie was made very intentionally. It was made with a lot of love. I thought it was a really well-made movie.
Yeah, there was a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I peppered in a lot of things that I did like in our description of the narrative, so I'm not going to, retread that territory. One thing that we touched on real quick that I will retread is, some of the gags actually fucking made me laugh.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a comedy not in that it was making jokes, but that it was about somebody who was inherently funny. Mm-hmm. And, the comedy was literally just watching the funny-ass parts of their life, which was kind of interesting. One of them, Mark touched on it briefly, where he was sort of auditioning for his first vaudeville job. And the guy, looks over, after Chaplin overhears him saying that, I need a comic, I don't need another singer or dancer. And, Chaplin, has this kind of, knee-high peacoat on, and he sort of squats down in it and puts his back to the guy, so he looks like just a wee person. And he's right at the bottom of this sign, and the way he's moving his body, it's as if he's trying to read the sign, as if he's sort of straining or stretching his body to see the sign. But then that stretch just sort of keeps going, and he just ends up getting taller and taller, and it from the back, such a brilliant way. What a creative gag, right?
Oh,
where everybody knows what a body looks like when you're trying to stretch to see something higher, but the
fact that he was 3 feet tall,
a body is only so tall, so the terminal limits of that stretch, and that stretch didn't stop, and he kept getting taller and taller, and it was so fucking funny. And I'm just that wasn't a joke that was written for the movie. That was funny because it was a funny part of Chaplin's life. True or not, that's the way it's depicted in the film, and I really appreciated that.
And that's the kind of shit that he did.
Yeah, whether it was real or not, it's well within Charlie Chaplin's brand of humor and capabilities, right? So I think I said all of my loves, likes for this movie, peppered in through the narrative, but a couple of things that weren't necessarily likes, but I felt needed to be discussed. Dude, could you imagine being a fucking vaudevillian or stage performer and then seeing movies?
Oh, yeah.
Come out. What the actual fuck? They really depicted in this movie where, he was just enthralled. There are moving pictures on the wall that's, people on a stage, but it's recorded and you could just watch it again.
Yeah.
And, I can't even imagine how fucking mind-blowing that must have been.
And he's obsessed. He's enchanted.
Yeah. How would you not be?
Right.
Right. I gave this amazing fucking performance and I did this amazing stuff that everybody loved and blah, 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 blah.
And nobody will ever see that show again.
Yeah, but that was just that evaporated. Somebody fucking, wrote War and Peace and then lit it on fire.
Yep.
Well, somebody read it once.
Right, exactly. So I did love the awe that it depicted in him when he saw movies, because I can only imagine what people of his ilk must have thought when those came out.
Right.
I have just a liner note here that, his life was just filled with tragedy. This movie really showed that, even at his highest point, struggled a lot. And he was sort of that definition of, if you don't laugh, you cry, which actually, played even into one of my other quotes. I'm giving up all my quotes here, but there was a time where, he just found out that first love that he never married, the one that he was pining over, she had died at, a relatively young age, and nobody had told him. And he finds out on this train ride, his first train ride sort of back to London since sort of hitting it big, and he knows that he's going to get off the train, and there's just going to be a crowd of people waiting to receive him. And one of his friends or assistants or something like that says to him, what do we do, Charlie? And he kind of in a melancholy voice just says, smile. And it's oh man, that hit me like a gut punch. What can you do in that situation other than smile? And these people came to see me. Seeing me makes them happy. It's not their job to deal with me being in a bad mood, even if I had this just tragic news thrown on me.
Yeah.
And so a true professional, his reaction is smile. Laugh through it, Ooh, it was a very, very good...
Yeah, he was I exist to please people, and if I'm in a piss-poor mood, then my image is gone.
Yeah, but it wasn't as self-serving as, my image is gone. It's at least the way it's depicted in the film is my job is to make people happy.
Yeah.
And it's all I can do.
This is my function.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. And, what am I going to do other than that? What am I going to do other than try and make people laugh or smile,
Right.
Which is dark, but also it's dark in it's a beautiful kind of dark, like a Lana Del Rey song.
Yeah.
It's relatable in a way because we are in our lives put in situations where we have to put on a face. Something that I liked that I didn't like. Okay. So I appreciated it because it was well done. I didn't like it because it made me uncomfortable. Was their depiction of his mother's
Illness.
Yeah, that's the right word. Like there's a scene where he reconnects with his mom later in his career and everything seems normal and it's a very positive scene. And then she picks up some crackers, she picks up some biscuits or whatever, and she just starts breaking them in her hands. And like at first you're thinking that, she's breaking them up for tea or for soup or whatever. Like she's doing it with a purpose and she just doesn't stop. And she just keeps kind of grinding it into dust and she's kind of like looking around and she just kind of keeps going and going and going. And I thought that the way that actress depicted that, I don't know, that tick or that...
Yeah, I would probably call it a tick.
Yeah.
Was very, very uncomfortable for me. But that was the point. That was the purpose. So I'm not going to knock it for that because it was powerful, I thought, And you saw Chaplin getting uncomfortable and eventually just kind of getting up and walking out of the room because he doesn't even know how to process it.
Yeah, and he even says in voiceover, he's like, I never helped my mother. I just threw money at her.
Yeah, and he said I could never handle my mother for very long.
Yeah, like it was a very, again, sort of self-critical view of himself as it related to his relationships and to his mother specifically. But it was one of those, like, you did your best kind of thing. Like, I don't know how you handle that type of situation.
Yeah, just the way she portrayed that was very, like, understated but, like, effective.
Yeah, no, she killed it.
And the worst part was she was portraying her grandmother, whom she'd never met.
Yeah.
Fuck, yeah, you're right.
Like,
yeah.
what?
Hits it even harder.
Yeah, that's brutal. So one other thing that I wanted to mention was, I don't know why I never knew this before watching this movie like 5 years ago, but I didn't realize until I watched this movie that like Charlie Chaplin actually started United Artists.
Yeah.
And that was his production company, and like
with Doug Fairbanks.
Yeah, and like reading up on United Artists and their sort of like their mission and the purpose of the production company was like fascinating, and I gained a ton of fucking respect for that particular production company. It's interesting to look it up because it's also something that, I knew United Artists, like I know fucking 20th Century Fox, and I know TriStar, and I know all the
Paramount.
bullshit. Yeah, had no idea it had connections to motherfucking Charlie Chaplin.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that is a hilarious, fun tidbit that I read in the trivia a million years ago. Or no, sorry, I didn't read it in the trivia. I saw this on a list. I fucking love those like countdown lists on like YouTube and shit.
Yeah.
Fucking love those.
Mojo?
Yes, like Watch Mojo and shit. Guilty, not even a guilty pleasure. This is just a pleasure. I was watching one that I think actually could have been Watch Mojo that was like top 10 whatever things that actors and actresses did that like nobody will ever know. So, like, for example, Jamie Foxx in the movie Ray had his eyelids glued shut every day, so he physically couldn't open them. And they're like, your eyes are behind, like, dark glasses. Like, we will not be able to see your eyes moving.
And he's like, don't care.
Yeah, he's like, no, I need to be blind.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever know that.
Nope.
Right? And anyway, there's a list of shit like that. This movie was on that list. Actually, I think this could have been what inspired me to purchase this movie, because I think it actually may have been the thing that first introduced me to this movie's existence. Anyway, there's a scene where Charlie Chaplin is playing tennis against Kevin Kline. An amazing scene, by the way.
Oh, phenomenal.
So I hope I get this in the correct order. Robert Downey Jr. is right-handed, but Charlie Chaplin was left-handed and thus played tennis left-handed. And so Robert Downey Jr., who was an avid tennis player, spent the better part of a year relearning how to play tennis with his left hand so he was more authentically Chaplin when playing tennis in this one scene. And Charlie Chaplin's handedness never comes up in this movie. So, like, nobody would ever know that he did this. But it's an interesting and fun little tidbit. That, like, and again, I could be getting the handedness reversed. It may be that, like, RDJ was left and Chaplin was right, but fun fact.
Yeah.
Was there anything we didn't like about this movie?
Nazis.
I did not see that coming.
I was trying to think of a way to work that joke in, like, this entire podcast.
You've been thinking about Nazis the whole time I've been sitting with you?
Yeah.
Even with the butt stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, even with, well, I mean,
You did not see it because it was behind you. Aha!
Something that I didn't like that I don't think you guys are going to agree with.
If you say Stardust, so help me.
No, I already shat on that. There's no reason to pick it back up again. No, it's fine. I find pleasure in your disappointment.
Thanks, Dad.
Well, he's very good at disappointing us. So.
Yep.
That's a skill.
Must make you real happy.
They call him Mr. Pig.
Mr. I'm right all the time.
Mostly left.
Did you guys at all get an air of pretentiousness?
From the movie?
Yeah.
No.
I think I see where you're going with it. I think this movie knew how big it needed to be, and I think they tried to fill out all of that space. And I think it's hard to fill out that space without going over the edges a little bit on occasion. Yeah. So I see where you're going. I don't know if I would agree that the movie itself is pretentious, but it's big. It's big, and they tried to make it as big as possible.
Yeah, I think the way that I received seeing so many huge stars in this for such bit parts, I don't know. It felt like a passion project made by Hollywood for Hollywood, you know?
It was a bit self-indulgent.
Yeah, you know.
I think it's hard, though, to not feel that way about anything that is about Hollywood.
Yeah.
Fair.
Like, I think that no matter how big or small they make it, it's always going to feel like that.
There's no arguing that Chaplin had a profound impact on the industry that made this movie. So, of course, there's going to be this, like, mythic
circle jerk thing going on.
Yeah.
Mythic Circle Jerk. Come on, that's a band name.
That's absolutely a band name.
So that's sort of how it hits, the circle jerk.
Okay.
Still a Mythic Circle Jerk.
Yeah, no, that's good.
You're a wizard.
Just a bunch of guys in hooded robes that are cut at the waist.
Oh, God.
You're a wizard, Harry. Ooh, you're a hairy wizard.
Oh, God. No, Harry. No.
Yes, Harry, yes.
Well. So again, super subjective. That was a vibe that I got that I didn't love.
Fair. I can understand where you're coming from.
But again, in a similar way that, like, and I don't want to compare it to, because modern day A-list movies where they get like a bunch of big actors together.
Oh, Love Actually.
Yeah, movies
okay,
are
but
garbage.
Love Actually is actually a good movie.
But like Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day was fucking
or,
a dumpster fire.
You know,
Yeah.
They make them every year. This is not one of those. I don't want to put it on that shelf. You know, I feel like this movie actually has its chops, but I still get that vibe a little bit.
I think this movie could have been one of those, but it was handled appropriately.
I can't argue with that. I can't argue with
Because I feel like this could have tanked very easily if they had tipped the scales just a little bit more in one direction or the other.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they could have tried to make it really silly. Mm-hmm. Because Charlie Chaplin was really silly. Mm-hmm. Charlie Chaplin was also really serious. And Charlie Chaplin made an absolutely earth-shatteringly monumental contribution to what is now Hollywood.
Yeah.
So to do him justice in 2 hours and 23 minutes is impressive. And they very easily could have been like, hey, Charlie Chaplin.
Ah, silly clown guy.
He's
Aye.
the silly clown guy.
He walks funny.
Wow, 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 wow.
I'm also not
Apparently, everybody who was making this movie was from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Of course they were. I'm also not a huge fan of Robert Downey Jr. in, like, his earlier years, like the way that he plays roles. I think that also adds to this super subjective feeling of pretentiousness, you know? Because I think, didn't he start in theater? Like, wasn't that, like, his main gig?
He was in theater.
Or maybe I'm off with...
I'm sure he's been in a theater before.
One of his first big movies, if I'm not mistaken, was U.S. Marshals.
No.
No?
He was part of the Brat Pack. He was in a bunch of shit in the
Okay.
1980s. Yeah, no, he was all over the 80s. I mean, he was in, Weird Science? He was in...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he was all over the 80s.
Yeah.
U.S. Marshals was after this movie. That was actually probably one of his first back after rehab.
So that's what I was conflating.
Yeah, it was like
U.S. Marshals
97,
was
98.
His return to the screen after he had reformed.
I believe so.
Yeah.
He may have still been struggling at that point. I don't know. I believe he went to rehab a couple times, and I think the most recent one, which was still probably 25 years ago at this point,
Yeah.
stuck, and he's sort of stayed the course.
It's similar in a way, and stick with me here, to David Bowie. David Bowie has what is famously known as the Thin White Duke era, and it was an era of his career where his already weird music took an even darker, weirder turn because of what he was going through at that time in his life. Drugs, lots of unsavory activity. So I think I can understand where you're coming from on this era of Robert Downey Jr. just hits the palate a little bit different, because it does reflect that he, at that time was very self-indulgent.
Yeah, he was at the top of the world in his career at that time.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, like, changed fundamentally with him coming out of rehab was, like, and again, I don't know the fucking guy, but, like, the vibe that you get in the movies seems like he somehow realized, like, I can be big and also not take myself too fucking seriously.
Yeah.
And I feel like Chaplin was the sort of last hurrah of, like, I want to be big and everybody better fucking take me seriously. And it's that last part of the vibe that you don't like, I think. And the reinvention, was sort of like, I can poke fun of myself and have some good times. And
Yeah. So that super intangible, that was sort of a vibe that I got that I didn't necessarily love. But, if you go out and you watch this movie, you may not have any of those feelings or vibes. But if you do,
just know, Mark's right there with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
A little Mark is sitting on your shoulder.
Breathing
Heavily.
on your shoulder.
On your shoulder.
Maybe a little bit of the neck.
You should wash your shoulder, is what we're saying.
Honestly.
Wash your shoulder.
More often than you think.
This is a PSA. Really, this entire podcast has been leading up to you really need to wash your shoulders.
Yeah, this is why we've gathered you all here today.
Are we ready to move on to Don Quixotes?
I believe so.
So, I would like to start. I have 7 quotes.
Wow.
Which is to say I had 4, and I'm going to read you my 1 quote. Because I've been whittling them down slowly. So this was RDJ as Chaplin talking about, I think, his 3rd ex-wife, one that he liked and was sad to see her go. He says, he's talking about Hetty, the woman he left in London.
His first love.
His first love. After he learns that she got married, he says, I wish her lots of happiness. Well, not lots, but some.
We've all been there.
Yeah, which is, that's so funny you say that, because, like, that's exactly what I was going to bring up. It's like, it's so relatable. Like, yes, I want you to be happy because I care about you and I still have feelings for you, but like...
fuck you a little bit.
But don't be too happy. Pine after me a little bit, too.
Yeah.
Don't make me jealous.
like, didn't you hear? She's married now. Good for her. Good for her.
Good for her, ...
Mm-hmm. Yep. So my quote comes at the end, or near the end. He's talking with his biographer, Anthony Hopkins, and he's just sort of thinking about his life. This is after the viewer has seen most of the story, and he makes the comment, I didn't change things, I just cheered people up. Not bad, that. And it speaks to also one of the points that you had brought up, that through line of where he feels a responsibility to affect change, and he's sort of trying to figure out what he's changed and what he's actually impacted. And he finds solace in the realization that, maybe he didn't move the needle forward in many of the areas that he wanted to, but he made some people smile, and that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah. I, oddly enough, also have 7, so I'm going to read all 4 of them now.
Good.
So the first quote I have is, early on, Charlie has made it onto the vaudeville stage doing his, disorderly drunk act that he was kind of famous for at the time.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah, it is absolutely hysterical.
People think it's less funny when I do it and I'm actually drunk.
Right.
But I think
it's the same.
They're missing the reference is the problem.
Right. It's an homage.
Problem.
It is.
You're a method actor.
Exactly.
They can't see your brilliance.
I need to get into character. And I'm just plain and simple, I'm not as talented as Charlie Chaplin, so I have to be just absolutely blackout drunk to do it. So.
Yeah. They call that a performance-enhancing drug.
Exactly. And I'm not in the Olympics.
Right.
Fuck them.
So, he's hanging out in the dressing room, and these showgirls are undressing and dressing in front of him. And he's very much, uncomfortably enjoying it.
Ogling, I think is the word.
Ogling is a good word. Silently observing titties.
As Yeah in The Sandlot said, yeah, you were. Your tongue was hanging out of your head, and you was swimming.
Exactly. So all the girls leave, and this one girl who's running late runs into the dressing room half naked from the waist up. And she sees him, and she's like, what are you doing in here? And he goes, the others don't mind. She says, well, I do. And he goes, you must be new. Just like...
That's a bold assertion.
Yeah.
It's fine, you'll get used to it.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
It is.
That's the word you were looking for.
My second quote comes from Dan Aykroyd's character Max Sennett after he reluctantly but enthusiastically agreed to bring Charlie on board for the flickers, the movies. And Charlie, in the process of introducing himself, ends up in one of the backgrounds of the shot and is just plain as day standing there right in the middle of the frame. So they have to creatively cut him out. So they cut out, a snippet of the film that he's in and mend it back together. And the snippet that he's in falls to the ground. And Max says, "You're on the cutting room floor, Chaplin. Not the place you want to be."
It's pretty solid.
I love that line because he's just like, look, if you're going to be there, I don't need you.
Yeah.
So my third quote is from his brother Sidney. They're kind of taking a self-gratifying tour of Charlie's new stomping grounds in Hollywoodland because he's got this nickel theater. It's 5 cents a showing, and there's like a cardboard cutout of Charlie Chaplin, and it's like a big fucking deal. And his brother, mainly jokingly, says, I still don't see nobody staring at you. And Charlie says, "Yeah, well, that's because I don't look like me."
That is such a great line. Like, from what little I know about Charlie Chaplin's, real life and interactions, that line is so fucking Chaplin.
Right.
It's some kind of mix between, a funny vaudevillian and, Yogi Berra.
Yeah.
Right?
Because he's like, of course they're not staring at me. I'm not the tramp.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But he doesn't say that.
No.
He says, "I don't look like me."
Right.
And one of the reasons that feels so Chaplin is, there's an alleged interaction between Einstein and Chaplin in real life, and the quote is something like, Einstein says to Chaplin, "What I admire so much about you and your art is your universality. You don't say a word, and yet the whole world understands you." To which Chaplin quipped, "But your fame is even greater. The world admires you when nobody understands what you say."
It's so fucking Chaplin,
I
though.
hope that's real, but even if it's not, that's the reason why I feel like that's such a Chaplin quote, right? It's like, well, I just don't look like me.
Right. So my last quote is from his last ex-wife, and she walks into the room pleading for his attention, screaming his name to get his attention because he's so focused on making his latest work perfect. He's been agonizing over it for days, probably weeks, maybe even months. But every time she shows up in the room, he's completely focused on his latest picture. And she screams his name, and he finally turns around. And she just kind of exhaustively smiles, like, "I can't believe that I'm having to do this." And says, "Did you lose your other wives this way?" And he just very solemnly looks at her and says, "Maybe, but you'd have to ask them."
Super depressing.
Oh my god.
Fuck!
His eyes are sunken in, he recognizes it, and he's just too far gone.
And he realizes that he has not been paying attention to anything other than his career for decades.
I don't know why they're gone, but yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah.
Are we Lurdern?
Yeah.
Are we ready to rate?
Ooh, I believe so.
Yeah. So my rating does not reflect my entertainment. It reflects what I believe is closer to what this movie merits.
Okay.
I'm giving it a 7.9
Oh, wow.
blood tests.
I was not expecting that. 7.9. Good metric, too. Blood tests.
Yeah, it's solid.
Yeah. Again, it's a good movie that,
Yeah. That's strong. Strong showing.
Yeah.
So, what do you got?
I'm going to give this an 8.4.
Oh, shit.
Talkies.
Ooh, ain't one of them flickers.
Damn, I was going to say flicker, but now you took it.
I'm sorry.
How dare you? How dare you?
The very cheek.
I will give this movie a 7.0.
You went lower than I did?
I did, surprisingly.
Wow.
Hollywoodlands. Yeah, I think this movie is really good. I don't think it's the best movie in the entire world. I really love the way they explored Chaplin's life. I don't think this is the movie I need to watch all the time, but I think it's a good one to have in your back pocket. It's like, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Which, to me, yeah, pretty good. It's like a 7.
I think it's great.
Man, I thought my 0.9 was an olive branch, and you just broke it off.
Yeah. I mean, again, I like this movie a lot, but yeah.
See, I'm trying to defend my opinion because I shat on it a little bit.
Yep.
You were
To me,
enjoying it.
7.0 is a strong showing, to me. So we're done?
Yeah.
Nothing else?
Cut it.
All right, I'll see you guys later.
See ya.
All right, guys.
Say hi to Reed on your way out.
Yeah, I'll talk to him. I'll see you guys later.
Bye, Mark.
Bye.
Hope you find your dad.
Unless there's something else.
Oh, is there something else?
Oh, shit. I think there is.
Okay, what is it?
Is it a, scene score?
Scene score.
Scene score.
Not our best.
Not our best. A little flat.
Not our worst.
No.
Not our worst.
I fucked it up a couple times.
Little flat. Little flat.
This wasn't one of those. Little
This
sharp.
is that was like the soda that you opened, you put back in the fridge, and then you continued to drink it the next day. It wasn't like totally flat, but it was a little flat.
A little flat.
There was some carbonation.
Yeah, still some bubbles.
Yeah.
Not quite
Sparkling. But like, not sparkly.
Yeah, not spicy.
Not sparkly.
Why is it spicy?
What is happening? Was that a quote from Fern Gully? Was it actually?
Yeah.
Wow.
Dude,
Twice
whoa.
as spicy.
That, I was just fucking around.
That was your Anthony Starr moment.
That was an Anthony Starr. That unlocked a deep memory. That was way in there.
It's the fucking iguana eats like the firefly or something and like spits it out and goes, "Why is it spicy?"
Was it Batty? Was it the electricity from Batty?
Maybe.
Oh my god,
It's
that's
been
so funny.
so fucking long.
All I
since I've
remember
seen
is
Fern
that guy who voices the iguana played Robin Williams' brother
Yes!
in Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yes!
And Robin Williams also voices Batty.
Oh,
Also, he was the guy who was the comedic relief in the destruction scene of Independence Day.
I believe he's a Weinstein.
Okay, so on that chipper note, Colin gave it a 7.0, Mark gave it a 7.9, Jackson gave it an 8.4. That leaves us with an average score of 7.8.
All right.
Thank you to all who filled out our movie familiarity survey. For those of you who didn't,
Shame on you.
you're dead to us. Grisey Laferty, after she murders Mark, will hunt you down.
Yep.
Good
And-
luck.
Good luck. You're safe as long as Mark is safe, because
See-
this is an order of operations thing. so-
What I'm worried about Gracie Laferty is da bears.
You got the bears, the beers, the bulls, and the nachos. Average familiarity for this movie was a 4.5.
All right.
So among our higher films, this movie, I actually should have probably brought this up in the very beginning. This is, I would say, among the better known films. Like, I think this movie won Academy Awards.
I believe it.
I would put this on the same shelf as like Awakenings, maybe Adventures in Babysitting, Mystery Men in terms of its like recognizability.
Yeah.
I also think Chaplin sort of spans a lot of demographics. Mystery Men maybe limited a little bit more in its like demographic range.
Yeah.
But still a very high profile film. Okay, so 4.5. So almost half of y'all's. That gives it a very, very slight increase in score. The scene score for this movie ends up at an 8 flat.
All right.
So punch up from 7.8 to 8. Little tiny bit increase, but I think pretty much our score, I think, represents what you can expect out of this film
Yeah. Yeah.
in terms of how much enhanced it will be if you haven't seen it. Is that all? We learned?
Yes.
I believe so. I believe so. I believe so.
Mama lives out.
Mama say, mama say, mama say.
What is happening? Thank you all for listening. Y'all listening. That's nice of you.
Yeah.
That's all for the Old Crep Review. If you have any ideas for movie reviews, or if you want to get involved and contribute to the scene score, get a peek at upcoming movies by taking our short weekly-ish movie familiarity survey, you can either A, email us at 3, that is the number 3, menandabasement@gmail.com, or you can get in touch with us at our website, or submit a movie at our website, or get on the mailing list at our website, or
Get some goddamn merch.
get some merch at our website, look at our pretty faces on our website.
Good face.
What's that website again? Oh yeah, tmaab.podbean.com. TMAAB stands for 3 Men and a
Basement!
Nice. Mark did a little, like, kind of shuffle move.
It's karate, Colin.
I believe it's karate.
Yes, but, you know, for the layman. Karate.
Also, please be sure to check out Sniffin' Dutchman, who are an uncomfortable band to watch.
Yeah.
But, you know...
Better to smell.
Better to smell. But they're also, you know, I mean, it's like cultural representation, right? Like, you know, they're representing what's going on in the Netherlands. So...
The Dutches.
The Dutches. So, That's good. That's good. Also, while you are at the venue, please be warned, the dick flipper is loose.
Yeah.
And they will be flipping dicks. And
You don't want to get caught with your pants down.
No, the flaccid flopper is going to be right behind him, making sure that,
It'll surprise you.
yeah, you're going to get tipped.
I hope you're not wearing gym shorts because you're going to get the full flip.
You don't want the full flip.
You never go full flip.
You never go full flip unless you want to end up in the hospital.
Right. With a flop.
Also, opening up on stage 3, we've got Mythic Circle Jerk.
Ooh.
And they will just ruin everybody's favorite fantasy properties.
Yeah.
Very mysterious.
Avoid the splash zone.
Which is most of the inner circle.
Yeah.
That's right. There's a lot of crossfire going on. It's
Yeah.
Stay on the perimeter.
Don't cross the streams.
You should be safe. Damn it.
They're all on tour now, and you can find us and this podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, all the podcasts places. All the podcast places. And wherever you find your podcasts. And until then, I am Colin McLeod.
Mark, go.
Action Jackson.
And we'll see you in cyberspace.
Resner.
Chicka chicka.
Ambergris.
Ambergris.